With just 67 days to go until the November election, the focus now shifting to the candidates' ground games as staff, advertising, and battleground appearances take on a new importance down the home stretch. Donald Trump finds himself nearly 2 points closer to Clinton than last week. But campaign experts are pointing to some deficiencies in his operation that might make it hard for him to keep up this momentum. Politico proclaiming Mr. Trump's new ad buy is just half of what the campaign had promised. And on top of that, Clinton's campaign offices outnumber Trump's by more than 3 to 1 across key swing states. Joining us now to discuss it all, Kristen Soltis Anderson, Republican pollster and columnist at the Washington Examiner, and Jason Osborne, a Trump supporter and former communications strategist to Dr. Ben Carson. Great to see you both.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Kristen, I'll start with you. Unconventional could be a way that we describe the Trump campaign. He plowed through the primary, wiped out 16 other candidates. He has massive crowds showing up. He's picking up in the polls, but nothing about his strategy has been traditional. So should he be worried about getting it in line with what people will argue has worked for general elections in the past?
There are things that Donald Trump has benefited from greatly that have allowed him to be a little bit unconventional thus far. For instance, he gets a ton of media coverage, and he gets it all for free, meaning that while normally candidates have to spend tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to put their message on the air, Donald Trump has benefited from getting an incredible amount of coverage. But what you can't make up for is ground game, and that's what's really important and where I think the Trump campaign has been lacking. In the 2012 election, Barack Obama's re-election campaign had 780 field offices across the country compared to Mitt Romney's campaign that only had 280. That gap was huge, and it meant that Barack Obama's re-election team could bring out more African-American voters in key places like Ohio. The Trump campaign has got to catch up if they want to turn out all of those voters that they say are sort of the silent Trump voters that are unlikely but could swing to Trump.
Well, and Jason, we're hearing from the RNC that they're going to deploy hundreds of people, that they're going to beef up these important states with extra offices and more ground game. But there have been, as you know, all along, many rumors about tension between the RNC, the Trump camp. They just see doing things differently in many cases. Those are always denied, and they resurface again. Do you think he'll take this help from the RNC, and do you think it will work long term for him?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think going back to your point at the beginning of this segment, where you pointed out correctly that during the primary, Donald Trump was outspent hundreds of million dollars to virtually nothing. And yet he was still able to generate the movement and get over 13, 14 million votes in a Republican primary. And I think he's able to do the same thing here. I do think there is a concern legitimately that, are we going as a party going to be able to get enough people out to vote? And I think the answer to that, based on particularly on what Reince has said, the chairman of the RNC, and the Trump campaign, is that they are teaming up and doing very well together in deploying the old 72-hour program has now become the 2-month program. And I think the enthusiasm is there for Trump. I don't see it there for Hillary.
Yeah, a lot of folks would say that, her appearances are much less well attended. The excitement, the passion is not there. Kristen, that's something he definitely seems to have harnessed. But honestly, we've been paying attention to this for a year and a half, but it's now Labor Day. Now America's going to start paying attention. I mean, Kristen, does he have a bit of a clean slate as they're going into what is the home stretch now, where people really start to dial in if politics is not their thing?
Well, so normally I would say yes, but this is not a normal election. And here you have two candidates for president who are extremely well known by the public. These are folks that have been in the headlines for decades, for almost my entire lifetime. The Clintons and the Trumps have been in the news. So this is not necessarily a case where you're going to have a lot of voters suddenly learning about Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton for the first time when we get into the debates. While you may have had folks first learning about, say, a Mitt Romney or a John Kerry in the debate phase, here these candidates are pretty well known. And so I think it's a cliche to say it comes down to turnout, but it is going to come down to having the actual ground game out there to go find every voter who might consider voting for Donald Trump and knocking on their door and calling them and getting them to the polls. And I'm not quite sure that at this point the campaign has proven that they've invested as much as the Democrats have over the last decade building that kind of machinery.
Certainly the personnel by both the campaigns and the parties very, very different. We're out of time. We got to leave it there. But listen, this campaign has defied all kinds of conventional wisdom. So we'll see if the momentum continues. Jason, Kristen, great to see you both.
Thank you.
Up next, 2 more institutes of higher learning apparently frowning upon free speech. Namiki Konst is here to discuss it, and she is fired up.